Hello, my name is Joe Clark, and this is the second part of a 3-film series called Barrow Built Liners. In this second part, we'll see ships built soon after the end of the Second World War in Barrow as replacements for ships lost during that conflict. We're going to feature Orcades III, Himalaya, Chusan and Oronsay. All of this film was taken by amateurs, seamen, passengers and onlookers. The quality varies, but it all brings back memories of these great liners, all of which have long since gone to the scrapyard. As a passenger myself from as early as 1947 and a crew member for 8 years from 1954, I remember these ships so well, and my passion now as I grow older is to share that love for the sea and ships of that era with as wide an audience as possible. I'm sure you'll enjoy watching it as much as I have putting it together. We're going to start with Orcades, built in 1947. She was my second ship as a cadet purser. We see here the Orcadian harp, her badge. This was just behind the bridge on the funnel casing. Our first shots of Orcades at sea. It's not often that you get the chance to take pictures inside the ship with a cine camera, but here there was a professional film crew on board, and someone was using their lights to take these films. Here we see Purser McInnes in his office, and here 2 female assistant pursers. And then there's Roger Porter, the deputy purser, at the counter, and he's joined by Purser McInnes. Another shot of Orcades at sea, this time in quite rough weather. And here we see Orcades berthed in the harbour at Dubrovnik. Passengers are going to and from in the ship's lifeboats. Orcades steaming out of Port Phillip Bay near Port Melbourne. And here she's seen silhouetted as she passes another Orient Line ship. The white streaks that you see are rockets going off. Orcades is seen here in Aden. More shots of her at sea. Here we see her birth in Venice, fairly close to St. Mark's Square. Paddle tennis, or deck tennis, was very popular with the younger set of passengers, quite energetic in hot weather. Some more shots of Orcades at sea. This time she's passing quite close by. From 1954 onwards, the Orient line, later to be joined by P&O, started a regular service between Sydney and the west coast of America. Captain Birch is presented with a lei in Honolulu, followed by a display of Hawaiian dancing. On a totally different voyage, Orcades is seen here, steaming into Suez Bay prior to transiting the canal. These pictures were taken by Graham Wood, an Orient Line deck officer. These pictures were taken from Iberia of Orcades coming into berth in Hong Kong. And now, sometime after 1966, Orcades is seen in the P&O livery approaching Tilbury. These pictures were taken from a sun tug. The bridge carrying the railway line round to the Tilbury riverside berths is lifted to allow Orcades to enter the lock. The two tugs here are not sun tugs. Leaving the lock, Orcades is pulled across the dock towards her berth. You got a quick glimpse of Himalaya there. Himalaya is to be our next ship. We can see Himalaya here at the landing stage at Tilbury. From the state of her stern, I would imagine that she was tying up to allow passengers to get off after a long voyage from Australia. What follows now are shots of Himalaya in Tilbury docks. here she's seen passing another P&O ship at sea. She's tied up here in the Canary Islands on a cruise. Another shot of her passing at sea. This time she's a little further away. Some excellent shots here of Himalaya tied up in Barcelona. The ship in the background is the Leonardo da Vinci. Himalaya in Southampton. And here we have some very good pictures of Himalaya tied up in Madeira. These pictures were taken from Arcadia, which has just sailed. You may have noticed the green boot topping instead of the normal red. This was a sop to the Orient Line when the Orient Line ships were painted white, and it didn't last very long. This set of pictures are truly remarkable. Himalaya is laying off Chitral to transfer a sick passenger. A shell tanker comes between the two ships with apparently nobody on lookout on the bridge. We can now watch scenes of the transfer. Himalaya is seen here leaving Hong Kong. Our last pictures of her see her safely tied up in Southampton. We now move on to Chusan, a slightly smaller ship than Himalaya, and launched a year later. Chusan is seen here berthed in Tilbury behind the Iberia. This shot was taken from the train by passengers about to embark on a cruise. You can see they have a very expensive cabin. All dolled up and ready for the captain's cocktail party. And here the good lady is seen on deck. Her husband, on a bridge visit, pretends to work the ship's telegraph. In the chart room, the navigator marks the course. From the bridge, you look down onto the boat deck, which has ample space for many deck games. Looking in the other direction, one gets a very good view of the bow and the way ahead. Chusan is passing another of the fleet at sea. And here she's seen tied up in Southampton. The P&O flag and the Orient Line flag with the Union Jack fly above the berth as stores are being loaded for the cruise. Passengers in very smart clothes are about to embark. Quite a contrast to today's cruise passengers. The baggage is hoisted aboard, and soon they'll be ready to sail. Once aboard, the passengers can listen to the Royal Marine Band as it plays before their departure. The gangway is lowered and ropes are cast off. Chusan will shortly be sailing. We can now watch as Chusan moves out into Southampton water, pulled by a tug. Well-wishers have boarded a red funnel steamer and will follow her down Southampton water into the Solent and beyond. During this sequence of film, you'll get many shots of Chusan from a number of angles. Some people may disagree with me, but I think these ships were most beautiful when compared with today's enormous and ugly cruise liners. Chusan was built at a time when flying by air was still most uncommon. She was destined for the Far East trade. Later also went on to the Australia run. She has now reached the Calcott Spit lightship and will soon drop her pilot and be on her way. Passengers are seen here in a Mediterranean port, going ashore by ship's boat. And here, as they come back, we can look up at her as the boat moves round to the accommodation ladder. Another port, another day, and then it's back to sea again. Chusan is seen here on another occasion from the bridge of the Chitral. Looking at the occupants of the small boat, I would say she was in some far eastern port. And from the bridge of Strathmore, Chusan is seen passing at sea in very tranquil waters. We are now going to join another family, and they're seen going ashore in Madeira, where they buy cane furniture. This is then taken aboard. Where are they going to stow that lot? Ah, I see now. They've got their own private suite on the deck. And after all that exertion, it's time for a quick dip. This time we see Chusan anchored and taking on bunkers, but the cruise is nearing its end. Friendships have been made, and maybe, who knows, they may lead to lasting relationships. The next morning in Southampton, baggage is taken off the ship and into the sheds. The cruise is finally over. It's back to work on Monday. The following pictures were taken by Carola Ingle. She had been a woman assistant purser with the P&O for several years. She resigned from the company go out and join her father in Hong Kong and was allowed to work her passage out there. Here we see scenes of some of her shipmates waving her goodbye as the ship prepares to leave Hong Kong on its homeward voyage. And we too will leave Chusan as she steams past the Star Ferry out towards the open sea. The last ship in this series is the Oronsay, built for the Orient Line in 1950. The taxi is taking some cruise passengers to the boat train at St Pancras Station. The baggage is loaded and they're soon off. Now approaching Oronsay. Now the time comes for embarkation. Once on board, there's time before the ship sails to have a quick gin and tonic. And here we see Oronsay at sea. And now in the first port of call, the passengers have a chance to go ashore in the ship's boats. Oronsay is in Malta. Passengers are welcomed ashore. And now they can look down from the battlements on their cruise ship. After a good but tiring day ashore, it's time to get back to the ship, and indeed to the air-conditioned comfort she affords. It's not long before we arrive at another port and go ashore once again in the ship's boats. On a hot day at sea, there's a lunchtime deck buffet. For those who preferred it, there was still a full luncheon menu in the saloon. Whilst on the cruise, various deck games competitions are organised, and in this case it's the ladies' deck quoit competition. We can look up now towards the bridge, which the passengers will have a chance to visit. Again, you have a good chance to have a look at the forecastle on the way ahead. But all too soon the cruise comes to an end and the ship moves towards her berth in Southampton. Lorries are loaded with stores for the next cruise, which will start in the afternoon, but our passengers are still waiting for their turn to disembark. Once off the ship, they proceed to the customs shed, and once through that inspection they'll be able to make their way to the train which will take them back to St Pancras. We now move to Sydney in Australia. Oronsay is about to leave Sydney on a voyage which will take her to Auckland, Suva, Honolulu, Vancouver, San Francisco, Long Beach, back to Honolulu, back to Suva, Auckland and Sydney once more before she starts her homeward voyage to Tilbury. The pictures of her leaving Pyrmont were taken by Stan Nichols, a senior engineer from Orion. Oronsay is making her way towards the Sydney Harbour Bridge. She passes under the bridge and we'll pick the story up on the other side. Pictures taken by Graham Woods, at one time a chief officer with the Orient Line and now working in Sydney. Oronsay is about to pass Fort Jackson. As she moves up the harbour, she will pass by Rushcutters Bay, Double Bay, Rose Bay and Vaucluse before heading towards the Sydney Harbour Heads and the open seas. Once out at sea, it's pretty rough as the ship makes its way across the Tasman Sea towards Auckland. 2 days out of Auckland and all is calm and serene once again. The ship arrives in Suva, and back at sea the passengers enjoy quoit tennis while some just lie in the sun. I'm not quite sure where the next set of pictures were taken. The ship is seen here bunkering. On the bridge, Captain Roberts is looking a little anxious as Oronsay passes another small ship. We move inside to the wheelhouse, where one of the bridge officers is busy marking the charts, and from the bridge we can take a look at the boat deck. Passengers are seen here coming down the accommodation ladders onto a pontoon to board the ship's motorboat and go ashore. There's always work to be done, and members of the deck department are seen here cleaning and painting, whilst passengers relax on deck. For the more energetic, the ship has organised some aquatic sports. There's always plenty to do if you want to, and here we see 4 people playing quoit tennis, whilst others play the more sedate game of deck quoits. And here we see a couple very briefly playing deck tennis. A lovely picture of Oronsay in some Mediterranean port, and here she's seen silhouetted against the sun, passing another P&O Orient liner. The famous Alcatraz prison and the Golden Gate Bridge outside San Francisco. Oronsay makes her way towards Honolulu. she arrives, a troupe of Hawaiian dancers will entertain the passengers. And now we watch as she docks in Suva. Here, as always, the passengers are entertained by the Fijian police band. And now she's headed back towards Auckland. Arrival in Sydney and going under the bridge once again. Here in Sydney, on another occasion, she's tied up at Circular Quay. More shots of her anchored as the passengers go ashore. And we can see her reflection in the water as she's tied up in Naples. It's the cruising season again, and passengers are about to embark at Southampton. The ropes are let go from the shore, and a tug takes up the strain. The crew are now in their white uniforms as we head into the Mediterranean. Oronsay is in Malta once again. And a shot taken from Arcadia of Oronsay at sea. On this occasion, Oronsay passes her sister Orcades. Here Orcades is seen in Naples. The ship behind is the Conte di Bianco. This time Oronsay is in Venice. Here she's seen tied up in Southampton. Like her sisters, Oronsay was painted white in 1967 and was now fully owned by the P&O Steamship Company. She's seen here about to embark her passengers in Southampton for yet another cruise. This time the destination is the Canaries, and here she's seen tied up in Lanzarote. Back at sea, the passengers can enjoy the sunshine. We see Oronsay here approaching Gibraltar. And finally, we see Oronsay with a fire in number 3 hold. This happened in Hong Kong, and the fire was extinguished by the local fire brigade. It certainly looked like hot work. Our last pictures are of Oronsay being pushed into her berth in Southampton.